مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today's topic is about economics and finance. It's a very tough and long and detailed topic. I'll try to briefly comprehend myself and share the knowledge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has imparted upon human being. It's a divine command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a divine order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the sources and Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam that he conveyed the message to us. So one of the important aspects of Islamic system of any belief is that it's a divine command. It's not a man-made system. This thing has to be understood. So if a man does not understand, it is his deficiency, not divine deficiency. So this is one of the things to be separated. So economy, of human economy, everybody needs money, everybody wants to be rich, everybody wants to be healthy and prosperous. So Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given this message through Adam alayhi salam to Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So there are a few things I'll try to compare what the world economy and system is, what the other adyan and faiths teaches, and what Islam gives to the humanity. The secular mind says there's no perfect system of economy. That's what they think. But in Islam, we believe there is a perfect system of economy, and system of managing wealth and prosperity of humanity is through the revelation in the Quran and the teaching of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So first thing in Islam says prohibition of usury. This is the crux of the basis of economy of Islam. There should be no usury. What is usury? Is compound interest. When you lend somebody money and unilaterally you charge him whatever amount of money, and when the person cannot pay the interest and the amount settled, they double and add the interest to the principal and double it up, multiplied. Adaf and mudaf. This is what is the common understanding of the usury is. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse number 275 to all the way to the verse number 281, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in detail described what is the difference between a business and a trade. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ الرِّبَا, those who eat the interest or the usury wealth. لَا يَقُومُونَ إِلَّا كَمَا يَقُومُ الَّذِي يَتَخَبَّطُهُ الشَّيْطَانُ مِنَ الْمَسِّ. In the day of judgment, they will raise as if they've been possessed and touched by a demon or shaitan. ذَلِكَ بِأَنْتُمْ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَا. They say the trading is same as interest earning, it's a business. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Allah has forbidden the interest and usury, making money upon money and changing the nature of the transaction is riba, according to the definition which is ulama have described. There are much more definitions, but for common sense, we should understand the distinction. What is the point which I'm trying to make? Whenever we do transaction, we should make sure we are not doing a riba. This is something we have to be conscious in our mind always with the trade. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah has made halal the trade and forbidden the usury interest. فَمَنْ جَاءَهُ مَوْعِزَةٌ مِّن رَبِّهِ فَانْتَهَى فَلَهُ مَا سَلَفَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever took this advice and now abstained and stopped and restrained from himself from doing this trading, and those ever what is done before is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is for giving that وَأَمْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and all matters returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَنْ عَادَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. And whoever does it as a habit, as a transgression, disobedience to Allah and His Messenger's command, is going to be living in hellfire forever. فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Khalidun is everlasting, never ending. And this is يَمْحِقُ اللَّهُ رِبَا يُرْبِي الصَّدَقَاتِ. Allah kills the interest earning in usury. There's no barakah in it. People get wealthy, but they don't have peace. As we see the world economy, where it is moving, people have plenty of wealth, but nobody is satisfied. And this is the barakah. When people have little, but they're contented. This is why there are no robbery, there should be no stealing and cheating and lying, because a person is contented. As long as I am thinking I can get away with you and nobody is to be accounted for, or I'm not to be accountable for my crime, so then I'm going to get away with it. So this is something to be understood. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah kills the riba and bless and grow yurbi sadaqat. When we do the sadaqah as a voluntary, good, kind efforts to make world better. Wallahu la yuhibbu kulla kuffarin asim. Allah does not love those who are sinful denial. There's all way to go further on. The second thing which we need to comprehend is a fair trade and just measures. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give full measures when you measure and weigh with a balance that is straight. And that is the most fitting and the most advantageous and final determination. Chapter number 17, verse number 35, Surah Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأُوفُوا الْكِيلَ إِذَا كِلْتُمْ وَزِنُوا بِالْقِسْطَاسِ الْتَقْسِيمِ ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَحْسَنُ تَأْوِيلًا. This is the command that when we do trade and exchange, we should not cheat in the weighing and measure. There are two types of measurement, a scale of weight and the measurement of the distance. Nabi ﷺ said, if you stole 1 inch of land from somebody on the day of judgment, a odd size of weight would be put on his neck to be carried as a punishment for that person. And this was the punishment given to the other nations before Muslims. The third part of the Islamic system of economy encourage charity and sharing wealth, which is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in chapter 51, verse number 19, and in their wealth is a share for one who asks and for the deprived. So there is command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَفِي أَمْوَالٍ حَقٌّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَمَرْحُومٍ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ آيَاتٌ لِلْمُوقِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding in their wealth. So whatever wealth we possess, we should think in the back of our mind, there is a share of a deprived one. The best one is the one who is my brother or blood relative. First, take care of family. If we take care of our family, nobody has to take care of them. And then to the neighbors, to the nearest and the close and distant relative, to the friend, and to the social contact. So whole community is what Islam builds for, not just for individual wealth. When their people are rich and wealthy, they do not care for other people. The fourth part is mutual help and cooperation. Help one another in act of righteousness and piety, and do not help one another in the sin and aggression. Chapter 5, verse number 2. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Juz al-Ayah, وَالتَّعَاوِنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوِنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. So cooperate with each other in the good and the righteous thing. And do not cooperate if somebody comes with a good offer and opportunity that you will make a quick benefit from this, but that is not good in the bigger picture or the long run and for the betterment of the community, not just myself, and for the other people opportunity. For example, again, just an example, not this is absolute. If we are pulled over by a cop for driving and violating traffic rule, if we give a bribe to the cop, if you bribe him and get away with the fine, what will happen? He will keep the money and put it in his pocket. Similarly, if you go to any office and government office or any administration and you give money to the person rather than paying the fine and penalty, so what will happen? Our fine will be turned in process to come back to the government and will be spent on the public. So our fine went back to the community. But if person took bribe and he put it in his pocket, so the community is not going to get it, and the person will keep it in the pocket, and what will happen? In the long run, people will get away with the wrong way. Then the whole system will collapse. So we should understand when we are fined not just upon us for violating the rules. And this is where Islam teaches. And then the fifth thing, which is emphasis in the Quran, these are the few verses, there are plenty of verses in the Quran about it, but few verses I chose. The Surah Baqarah, verse number 188, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who believe, do not consume one another's wealth unjustly and send it in bribery to the rulers in order that they might aid you to consume a portion of the wealth of the people in sin, while you know it is unlawful." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Surah Al-Baqarah, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَدْلُوا بِهَا عَلَى الْحُكَّامِ لِتَأْكُلُوا فَرِيقًا مِنْ أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ بِالْإِثْمِ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Very straightforward command. I just mentioned an example that if we don't pay fine and we bribe the person to get our job done, and that is going to make individual rich, but when it returns back to the text, to the government, and it will be coming back and consumed and provided to the community. So our fine will be back served upon us. And this is why Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam say, Ar-Rashi wal-Murtashi, kullahum finnar. The one who takes the bribe, the one who gives the bribe, they both are going to be in the hellfire. And this is where sixth command and the option of Quranic command for us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, avoid exploitation. Avoid exploitation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, chapter 4, verse number 29, do not consume one another's wealth unjustly and send it in bribery to the rulers in order that they might aid you to consume a portion of the wealth of the people in sin, while you know it's unlawful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu, direct address to the believer. is a command, not an option. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل إلا أن تكون تجارة عن تراض منكم. Except, do not eat or consume the wealth of others for each others or bribe, except when you are into a trade transaction with the mutual agreement between the parties. ولا تقتلوا أنفسكم. Do not kill yourself. إن الله كان بكم رحيما. Indeed, Allah is all forgiving and merciful. ومن يفعل ذلك عدوانا وظلما فسوف نصله نارا وكان ذلك على الله يسيرا. Whoever does this as a enmity and hatred and disobedience, he has done transgression, dhulm, and he will be in the hellfire, that person, forever. And this is easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to punish this person with that. The hadith of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam in matter of economics, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, the buyer and the seller have the option to cancelling a confirming a bargain unless they separate, means they have signed and they have deal and they have left apart. And if they spoke the truth and made clear deficit of the good. If you have a product you're selling, make sure you tell the buyer the defect of the product. There will be blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that bargain. If they told lies and hid some facts, their bargain will be deprived of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, the giving the upper hand is better than the seeking the lower hand. So we should be always offering whatever we have rather than seeking always. There are the nature of people. They always come and ask. But we should generously, politely say, we can or we cannot do. Do not. قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ وَمَغْفِرَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِنْ صَدَقَةٍ يَصْبَحُ عَزًا. A kind word is better than a charity followed by insult of a person. So that is another more important. Charity is important, but the more important than charity is the kindness in your behavior. And this is, we often feel irritated when somebody comes multiple times to ask. The difference between asking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and people, when you ask person once, twice, three times, the person will give you 4 times, he will say, I had enough of you. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the more you ask me, the more I give you. So we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rather than people. Allah is musabbib al-asbab. He will provide the sabab, the resources. So we should not ask the resource, we should ask the provider or maker of the resource. This is one of the message from Islam. Whenever we have a need, we should come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salatul hajat, a prayer for the need. We should come and make a good wudu and make the intention, Ya Allah, I have a problem, I need help. And when we consult with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is the maker of everything. So He will provide the resources. In another hadith, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, how you do the financial transaction. He said, gold to be paid by gold, silver to be paid by silver, wheat by wheat, barley by barley, dates by dates, salt by salt, like for like, and equal for equal. Whoever goes more or asks for more has dealt in riba. Usually, the receiver and the giver are equally guilty. So transaction should be in the form, whatever we got, we should give. This is more detail. I don't have time to go into detail. But just to understand, when we do transaction, equal for equal. That's we should keep it. The hadith from Muslim. Another hadith, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam emphasizes fair exchange in financial transaction, discourage unjust practice like usury, and promotes equitable dealing in the economy. Riba in Islamic finance refers to the prohibition of a usury or unjust enrichment through the interest or excessive gain on a loan on financial transaction. It is considered exploitative and goes against the principle of fair economic justice and social responsibility in Islam. The concept of riba is derived from the Quran and teaching of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it aims to ensure that financial transactions are conducted in a manner that benefit parties without causing harm or iniquity. So usury is referred to that extra money to be earned on the money. There's some comparison about Islamic system versus all economic system and comparison. There are, today's world, there's one system of economy called capitalism. The other one is called socialism. Third one is called communism. Fourth is called mixed economy. Fifth is called trade economy. Each of its own approaches in the production, distribution, and consumption of the goods and services. There isn't a single best economic system as they believe. The people like to do whatever they can do the best. The goal of the society and technological advancement and cultural values in geographical circumstances is a brief comparison. A capitalism offers one ownership, which private ownership of the resources and means of production. Number 2, market, and it provides drive by supply and demands, consumption and profit motives. And then incentive, individual incentive and entrepreneurship and incentivize. 4th is a wealth distribution, income and wealth disparities can rise due to the market dynamics. Role of the government in this system of economy is limited governmental intervention in economic affairs. Individualism is emphasized in capitalism, which is emphasis on individual rights and choices. Next system economy in the world is called communism, which is also allow ownership, but the ownership is collective ownership of the resources and means of production. The government as a collective think that they own everything for everybody. Market certainly planning for the state, little to no private ownership. They do not allow you to own anything. Incentive, collective incentive of value work for the betterment of the society as a whole. Wealth distribution aimed at reducing inequality and ensuring equal access to the resources. 5th part of the communism is the role of government, high degree of control over economy and planning and distribution. 6th is the collectivism, emphasis on the collective well-being over individual interest. And that we have seen how the communism failed. In 75 years, it came and collapsed completely. Then the 3rd system, which is in the world, which is known across the faith, across the system economy, is the Islamic system economy. There are only 3 systems left in the world. Islamic system economy offer, number 1, ownership, a private ownership, but with certain restriction and ethical consideration. You cannot own somebody's property without fair justice transaction. Market, driven by market forces, but within the framework of the Islamic ethics. There's a rule of Islamic ethics of riba. 3rd thing is incentivity. Incentives, encouragement to productive and activities of the benefit of society. Wealth distribution. Islam emphasis on equitable distribution of the social justice. 5th part is the role of government. Intervention is allowed by the government to ensure social welfare and prevention of exploitation of one of the other. 6th part of the Islamic system, which is part of it, which is not offered in other systems, is called ethical framework, guided by the principle of justice, equality, and prohibition of usury. No other system offers prohibition of usury. And this is Islamic superiority over other systems for the benefit of the overall. Laws are made for what? For the weak person, because powerful is always powerful. But we see that justice is not served because the systems work for the powerful. And 7th, additionally, Islamic economic system is deeply intertwined with the religious principle and ethics which influence economic decision and behavior in unique way. The definition of a poor and rich in Islam is very straightforward. It says in Islamic terms, someone is considered wealthy when they have abundance of resources that exceeded their basic needs and needs of their dependents. However, being wealthy also entails a responsibility to fulfill obligation of zakat and contribute to the welfare of the less fortunate through charitable acts, support of the community and development of the community and form of benevolence. So we want to do things as a zakat is a requirement of every Muslim, which other adyan do it, but the system economy does not. Government only have a tax, the rest is yours. This is what the difference in Islam, and the rich person is required to pay zakat, 2.5% of which is above the 7.5 ounces of gold or silver or 52 or 56 ounces they possess for a year, 2.5%. So if you have $100, you pay $2.50. That is zakat. If you give extra, that is sadaqah. That is voluntary. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُمْحِقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَا وَيُرْبِ الصَّدَقَةِ. Even though you gain money from the interest, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He kills it. And sadaqah grows with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we spend money here, we are giving to somebody, we should be thankful for that person. Because when he or she took, before that, it goes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hand. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I will take it and grow it and multiply it. On the day of judgment, when person will come, Allah will say, this is yours. And the person will say, Ya Allah, I don't remember doing these good deeds. Allah will say, I took it and multiplied it. So even a penny becomes billions and gazillions. We do not know what will be, when will be the qiyam. And the poor, by definition, in Islam is a needy person. The poor person in Islam are those who lack the means of basic necessities, including food, clothing, shelter, and other essentials of life. Islam places a strong emphasis on obligation of those who are better off to help alleviate the hardship of the needy through act of charity, including both mandatory, which is zakat, and voluntary, which is sadaqah. These contributions help the community. Islamic economic framework encourages a sense of social responsibility and solidarity among members of the community. The Quran and the teaching of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam emphasize the importance of helping others those in need, ensuring fair distribution of wealth. This ensures the rich and the poor work together in building a just, equitable social society where the basic need of all members are met. It is important to note the Islamic economic principles focus on both individual conduct and systemic contribution or consideration. It is important to understand just not individual, whole community benefit. Just simply understand, if we understand zakat, if this is the bottom person and this is the top person of wealth, the poorest, the richest, and then the community's need, education, defense, wealth, economy, other system of business. If you divide those ministries and we put the poorest, little bit rich, more rich, and the richest. What Islam says, take the top one's money, put to the bottom guy. The bottom will come up. Now he's going to contribute into the little less rich, but little more richer than the poor. And he will contribute into the community. He will go buy in the market, and that market will be moving. Purchase power will increase. And this is how the zakat system works. Sadaqah is on top of the need, which we do it to our loved ones and family. When we do to those people in the loved ones, when we give it from the right hand, we are told don't let the left hand know about it. But when you are asking community to publicly contribute, we should raise our hand when the fundraising is done for the orphanage, to the masajid, to the school, the college, the education system, endowment. Why? Shaitan give a waswasa to everybody. Oh, I'm not going to be cheated. There, I got set up. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the first one who raised a hand gets all the blessing of everybody. So we should exceed and excel whatever we can offer in our hasanat to the public announcement. Now there are world and Islamic system, faith of economy, as I mentioned, capitalism, socialism, communism, mixed economy, traditional economy, command economy, and then there's a market economy and a green economy. These are the different form of economy. And coming to the other faith, comparison with the other faith, Islam versus other faith. While the various faiths may not have an explicit system of economy, the world has no. Buddhism, for example, Buddhism only emphasizes on simplicity, moderation, and avoiding excessive materialism. As we say, Buddhists, they leave the world. I ask one Buddhist person, what is your law for marriage and family and wife? There's no laws. There's no obligation. Person can leave wife and children and go to this, disappear. So there is no concept of economy. Islam force you to be part of the system. And unfortunately, Muslims have become part of no system because we think it's not Islamic system, and in Islamic system, we don't have a system. Next thing, Hinduism. Hinduism's economy emphasizes on influence by the concept of dharma, emphasizing duty, righteousness, and balance. But they do not have any explicit system about riba. You know, we used to say Hindu baniya in subcontinent culture. That person was taking bribery and also taking the interest in usury by lending money, and that become rich and rich. Other people become poor. And in the riba, they used to even possess their children. They will take their daughters and their sons as the person cannot pay back. They will possess their land. In those days of culture and farm, the agriculture was the source of living. Next comes to the Judaism. Judaism promotes ethical business practices and charity. They are close to Islam. But this is for the Jews. Only Jews have the right. Nobody else has. And Islam says everybody has a right, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. Fair, just. Christianity emphasizes concepts like charity and helping the less fortunate, which can lead to various forms of philanthropy. But this is not a requirement. And next come to the Islamic system, in which what we say, it's number one, prohibit riba. The riba, the interest or the usury. Second thing, avoidance of uncertainty. That is called gharar in Arabic. Means when you do a transaction, there should be no doubt about it. It should be clear to the buyer and the seller. Sharing the risk and the profit, mudarabah. When you do the transaction, each party knows what is the risk and what is the share of that party. And importance of social justice to the concept like zakat, sadaqah, which is we have mentioned, charity, obligatory and voluntary. And Islamic economics also promote fair trade. We cannot lie to the person and that hide the truth about the product which we are selling or buying. Responsible consumption. We just cannot be hoarding the wealth and the product. As we know, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam said, when people hoard food because the price will go up, that is not allowed in Islamic way. Next thing is the equitable wealth distribution. So Islam also stopped maisa, the gambling, promote ethical and social responsibility. So this is the system called Sharia. Sharia means path or the way to do it. So these are our Islamic system. When the banking system comes, it comes with the riba, mudarabah, murabaha, ijara, sukuk, takaful, wakala, mushrik, and qard hasan. These are the transaction words which are used. Time is limited, we can go into detail on all that. So Islamic system of economy is the way for the justice for everybody, not just for the one who get richer and richer. As we know, the 10 Sahaba Ikram who were told in the world they will be in the Jannah, except Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Everybody was a millionaire and a billionaire. They were not poor. But they did the transaction in the halal way. And this is where we should not be afraid of doing an Islamic way of system, because we have to have a belief. Unless I believe, even though I'm today seeing a little bit loss in my transaction, but in the long term, in here and hereafter, it will be a benefit for us. As I mentioned before, I'm sure many of us know, Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the third Khalifa Amir al-Mu'mineen, his trust is still running in Saudi Arabia. The what trust he established then, he has a bank account, and there are billions of people or millions of people are getting benefit from the land which he left. And he was the first man who bought the water for the entire Muslim Ummah of Medina by trading and doing a business transaction. We have to be smart in business dealing, but we should be always keeping in mind that we should not be involved in riba. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من